Personal attraction, how we are attracted to each other in a social setting. So let's go ahead and get started somehow. There we go. Okay. Interpersonal attraction in close relationships. Because humans tend to be fairly defenseless alone, we have evolved as gregarious beings. In other words, we like to be with other people. Due to this need, relationships have become the core of human existence. When people lack a need for relationships, they are diagnosed with the odd personality disorders, paranoid personality disorder, schizoid personality disorder, and schizotypal personality disorder. Since humans, as all other animals, must reproduce to survive, attraction between males and females has had a has had to take place, or none of us, of course, would be here. Humans have an intense need to belong, the need to connect with others in enduring, close relationships. Loneliness and social anxiety are two related conditions that have implications for one's social relationships. Whereas the needs for affiliation and intimacy are positive motives that foster interpersonal relationships, loneliness and social anxiety can be seen as negative motivational states that interfere with the formation of meaningful relationships. Loneliness is a psychological state that results when we perceive an inadequacy in our relationships, a discrepancy between the way that we want our relationships to be and the way that they actually are. When we are lonely, we lack high quality intimate relationships that we need. Loneliness may occur within the framework of a relationship. Loneliness is common during adolescence and young adulthood, times of life when old friendships fade and new ones must be formed. We can be alone and yet not be lonely. Sometimes we want and need solitude. On the other hand, we can be surrounded by people and feel desperately lonely. Our feelings of loneliness are strongly influenced by how we evaluate our personal relationships. We need close relationships with a few people to buffer ourselves against feeling lonely. Social anxiety is one of the most widely diagnosed anxiety disorders. Socially anxious people anticipate negative interactions and think that other people will not like them. These negative expectations then translate into anxiety in a social situation using safety behaviors, for example, avoiding eye contact and closely monitoring one's behavior, and underestimating the quality of the impressions made on others. Socially anxious individuals tend to see ambiguous social situations more negatively than individuals with social anxiety. Additionally, socially anxious individuals tend to dwell on the negative aspects of social interactions more than individuals who are low in social anxiety and also recall more negative information about the social interaction. A sensitivity to fearfulness of disapproval and criticism, a cluster of characteristics that define social anxiety, a sensitivity to fearfulness and disapproval of criticism, a strong tendency to perceive and respond to criticism that does not exist, low self-evaluation, rigid ideas about what constitutes appropriate social behavior, a tendency to foresee negative outcomes to anticipated social interactions, which arouses anxiety, an increased awareness and fear of being evaluated by others, fear of situations in which withdrawal would be difficult or embarrassing, the tendency to overestimate one's reaction to social situations, for example, believing that you are blushing when you are not, an inordinate fear of anxiety itself, a fear of being perceived as losing control. Research shows that socially anxious individuals tend to process disturbing social events negatively immediately after they occur and a day after the event. Social anxiety relates directly to this post event rumination. Rumination means thinking about it over and over and over again. Real events and real hurts may be the source of much social anxiety. The social cause of the hurt, feelings, and consequent anxiety is relational devaluation. Relational devaluation. The perception that the other person does not regard the relationship as being as important as you do. Roy Baumeister and Mark Leary feel that the following aspects illustrate the power of social attractions. When a man and woman have a child, the child's survival chances are boosted by nurturing of bonded parents. Social attachments enhance survival for both children and their caregivers. When separated, they seek to be reunited. People so strongly desire close relationships that they spend billions to attract the opposite sex. Billions and billions of dollars. And this is an example of somebody that had plastic surgery. This is what Britney Spears looked like before she had plastic surgery. And that is what Angelina Jolie looked like before she had plastic surgery. That's what Tom Cruise looked like before he had plastic surgery. This is him. He actually has a broken tooth. This is him later. And this is Michael Jackson. This is what Michael Jackson looked like when he was a little kid. And this is what he looked like a little bit later. And this is what he looked like just before he died. One determinant of interpersonal attraction is proximity, sometimes also called propinquity. Propinquity effect, the finding that the more we see and interact with people, the more likely they are to become our friends. Propinquity. Festinger, Schachter, and Bach in 1950 tracked friendship formation among couples in various apartment buildings. Residents had been assigned to their apartments at random. Most were strangers when they moved in. The researchers asked the residents to name their 3 closest friends in the entire housing project. Just as the propinquity effect would predict, 65% of the friends mentioned lived in the same building, even though the other buildings were not far away. Mere exposure effect, the finding that the more exposure we have to a stimulus, the more apt we are to like it. The propinquity effect occurs due to mere exposure. When we see certain people a lot, and the more familiar they become, the more friendship blooms. And it's the same way with music. The more you hear a song, the more you like it, even if you didn't like it in the beginning. Propinquity increases familiarity, which leads to liking, but something more is needed to fuel a growing friendship or a romantic relationship. Otherwise, every pair of roommates would be best friends. The fuel is similarity, a match between our interests, attitudes, values, background, or personality, and those of another person. But folk wisdom also has another saying, opposites attract. The concept of complementarity, or that we are attracted to people who are our opposites. Propinquity increases familiarity, which leads to liking, but something more is needed. Similarity. Okay, we've already done that one. Birds of a feather flock together, similarity. What about opposites attract? Complementarity. Research evidence proves that it is overwhelmingly similarity and not complementarity that draws people together. Similar personality characteristics promote liking and attraction. For example, in a study of gay men's relationships, men sought men with similar personalities. Those who scored high on a test of stereotypical male traits desired a partner who was most of all logical, a stereotypical masculine trait. Gay men who scored high on a test of stereotypical female traits desired a partner who was most of all expressive, a stereotypical feminine trait. Similar personality characteristics are important for heterosexual couples and for friends as well. Situations you choose to be in expose you to others with similar interests. Then, when you discover and create new similarities, they fuel the friendship. Close friendships are often made in college, in part because of prolonged propinquity. We seek physical proximity to those similar in appearance. We seek others with similar degree of physical attractiveness. Without even realizing it, you are often drawn to those who look like you, to the point where people are even more likely to ask out on dates others who are similar to them in terms of attractiveness level. For committed relationships, choose a similar partner. Relationships based on differences can be difficult to maintain. Perceived similarity are important than actual similarity, perceived similarity. Low level of commitment, choose dissimilar partners. We like people who like us. For initial attraction, reciprocal liking can be overcome. Dissimilarity in attitudes, attentional biases to attract faces. To attractive faces. Liking is so powerful that it can even make up for the absence of similarity. In one experiment, when a young woman expressed interest in male research participants simply by maintaining eye contact, leaning toward them and listening attentively, the men expressed great liking for her despite the fact that they knew she disagreed with them on important issues. Whether the clues are nonverbal or verbal, perhaps the most crucial determinant of whether we like person A is that the extent to which we believe person A likes us. Just how powerful is reciprocal liking? One indicator of just how important physical appearance is and attraction is our nearly chronic tendency to shift visual attention to attractive others in our immediate vicinity. According to recent research, it is powerful enough to neutralize our basic tendency to pay more attention to attractive faces. Physical attractiveness plays an important role in liking. Hatfield and her colleagues randomly matched 752 incoming students at the University of Minnesota for a blind date at a dance during freshman orientation week. Although the students had previously taken a battery of personality and aptitude tests, the researchers paired them up at random. On the night of the dance, the couples spent a few hours together dancing and chatting. The partners then evaluated their dates and indicated the strength of their desire to date that person again. Of the many possible characteristics that could have determined whether they liked each other, such as their partner's intelligence, independence, sensitivity, or sincerity, the overriding determinant was physical attractiveness. What's more, there was no great difference between men and women on this score. They were both looking for an attractive partner. Several studies have found that men and women pay equal attention to the physical attractiveness of the other. Other studies have reported that men value attractiveness more than women do. A meta-analysis of many studies found that while both sexes value attractiveness, men value it somewhat more. Of course, this was a study from 1990. That's 35 years ago. It may be that men are more likely than women to say that physical attractiveness is important to them in a potential friend, date, or mate, but when it comes to actual behavior, the sexes are more similar in their responses to the physical attractiveness of others. The finding that we like people who like us suggests that the strategy of playing hard to get can sometimes backfire. Recent research suggests that the strategy tends to decrease how much another person likes you, all the while potentially increasing how much that person wants to be with you. High attractiveness ratings are associated with large eyes, high eyebrows, prominent cheekbones, small noses, small chins, large pupils, and big smiles. This is attractiveness in the female face. And there you go. There's 5 of them. One's from Jamaica, one's from Colombia, one's from the Ukraine, one's from Argentina, and the other is from the Philippines. And they strangely look very similar to one another. They've all got high cheekbones, big eyes, small chins, big smiles. In male faces, what's attractive? High attractiveness ratings are associated with large eyes, prominent cheekbones, large chins, and big smiles. Facial attractiveness is perceived similarly across cultures. Symmetry is preferred. Size, shape, and location of the features on one side match the other side of the face. Averaged composite faces are preferred. Lost atypical or asymmetrical variations are not perceived as attractive. And of course, this is Halle Berry, and this is soccer player Beckham. Across cultures throughout the world, consensus emerges. Perceivers think some faces are just better looking than others. Even infants prefer photographs of attractive faces to unattractive ones, and infants prefer the same photographs adults prefer. Attractive faces for both sexes are those whose features tend to be the arithmetic mean or average for the species and not the extremes. This does not mean a composite average face has all the physical qualities that people cross-culturally agree are highly attractive. Familiarity may be a crucial variable for interpersonal attraction. People prefer faces that most resemble their own. A crucial variable that explains interpersonal attraction may be simple familiarity. When research participants rate attractiveness of faces, they prefer faces that most resemble their own. The researchers also computer morphed a picture of each participant's face, without the participant's knowledge, into that of a person of the opposite sex. When they presented this photo to participants, they gave the photo of their opposite sex clone even higher ratings of attractiveness. Benefits of beauty. Beauty has been associated with better health outcomes for infants in hospitals. In other words, pretty babies are treated better by the nurses. Better earnings, better teaching evaluations, and winning elections. And of course, this is Sarah Palin. She was the governor of Alaska. She was also the vice presidential candidate with John McCain against Barack Obama, the first time he ran in 2008. What else did she do? Anyway, she was a beauty queen. And there's Mitt Romney, of course, a very attractive man who was governor of Massachusetts and ran against Barack Obama the second time, I think. A particularly chilling example of the unfair benefit of beauty was discovered by Bader and Abdallah, who rated the facial physical attractiveness and health status of premature infants born in hospitals in Beirut, Lebanon. They found that physical attractiveness significantly predicted the health outcomes of these infants above and beyond the contribution of factors such as their medical condition. The more attractive the infant, the more quickly he or she gained weight, and the shorter his or her stay in the hospital. The reason neonatal nurses responded more to the prettier infants and gave them better care. As one of the researchers said, nurses played much longer with the cuter babies, held them longer, and spent longer feeding them. It's really upsetting. What if you had an ugly kid and they wouldn't pay attention to it? Physical beauty effects, attributions. The halo effect is a cognitive bias by which we tend to assume that an individual with one positive characteristic also possesses other, even unrelated positive characteristics. What is beautiful is good stereotype. The beautiful are thought to be more sociable, more extroverted, more popular, more sexual, more happy, more assertive. Meta-analyses have revealed that physical attractiveness has the largest effect on both men's and women's attributions when they are judging social competence. It's no coincidence that in children's movies, the hero is traditionally attractive and the villain is ugly. In addition to finding it pleasing to look at attractive others, we also tend to assume that what is beautiful is good. Highly attractive people do develop good social interaction skills. They report having more satisfying interactions with others. Is it a self-fulfilling prophecy? The beautiful receive a great deal of social attention. It helps them develop good social skills. Undoubtedly, this kernel of truth in the stereotype occurs because you probably recognize the self-fulfilling prophecy at work here. The way that we treat people affects how they behave and ultimately how they perceive themselves. Can a regular person be made to act like a beautiful one via the self-fulfilling prophecy? Researchers gave college men a packet of information about another research participant, including her photograph. The photograph was rigged. It was either an attractive woman or an unattractive woman. The men were told that they would have a telephone conversation with this woman. In this experimental condition, only verbal communication, no gestures or facial expressions, was used. The experimental purpose of the photograph was to invoke the men's stereotype that what is beautiful is good, that the woman would be more warm, likable, poised, and fun to talk to if she was physically attractive than if she was unattractive. In fact, the photograph the men were given was not a photo of the woman with whom they spoke. Did the men's beliefs create reality? The study was and the answer is yes, it did. Whatever they thought was going to happen. If they gave her a pretty picture, yeah, that's exactly what happened. The study was later replicated with roles switched. Women participants looked at the photograph of an attractive or an unattractive man and then spoke with him on the phone. The men were unaware of the women's beliefs about them, and just as in the original study, the women acted on their prophecy, and the unknowing men responded accordingly. These data remind us that it is a myth that physical attractiveness affects women's lives more than men's. 3 meta-analyses have examined the effect of attractiveness on behavior, and perceptions across hundreds of studies have found no gender differences. Physical attractiveness is as important a factor in men's lives as in women's lives. Evolutionary psychology is the attempt to explain social behavior in terms of genetic factors that evolved over time according to the principles of natural selection. Men and women are attracted to different characteristics in each other that maximize reproductive success. The evolutionary approach to love concludes that reproductive success for the two sexes translates into 2 very different behavior patterns. Throughout the animal world, males' reproductive success is measured by the quantity of their offspring. They pursue frequent pairings with many females in order to maximize the number of their surviving progeny. In contrast, females' reproductive success lies in successfully raising each of their offspring to maturity. They pair infrequently and only with a carefully chosen male because of the cost of raising and ensuring the survival of each offspring is so high. For women, reproduction is costly in terms of time, energy, and effort. They must endure the discomforts of pregnancy and birth and then care for their infants until maturity. Reproducing, then, is a serious business, so women, the theory goes, must consider carefully when and with whom to reproduce. In comparison, reproduction has few costs for men. Researchers asked more than 9,000 adults in 37 countries desirable marriage partner characteristics. Women valued more than men ambition, industriousness, earning capacity. Men valued more than women attractiveness. Top characteristics for both were the same: honesty, trustworthiness, pleasant personality. When women are near their ovulation and fertility peak, they have a greater preference for men who exhibit signs of reproductive fitness: symmetrical face, masculine face, muscular physique. The evolutionary approach to attraction and love has inspired its share of debate. One could argue that evolutionary advantages to having multiple sexual partners should not be limited to men, but should also apply to women. With multiple partners, females would increase the odds of getting resources for their offspring, as well as benefit from genetic diversity. Females would choose an attractive male with good genes with whom to procreate, and another male with whom to raise the offspring. It may also be the case that men value physical attractiveness in a partner not because of evolved tendencies, but simply because they have been taught by society to value it. They have been conditioned by decades of advertising and media images to value beauty in women and to have a more recreational approach to sex than women do. Research has found that in some situations, women value physical attractiveness just as much as men, specifically when they are considering a potential sexual partner as opposed to a potential marriage partner. Other researchers offer additional arguments that the preference for different qualities in a mate can be explained without resorting to evolutionary principles. Around the world, women typically have less power, status, wealth, and other resources than men do. Therefore, in many societies, women need to rely on men to achieve economic security, and they must consider this characteristic when choosing a husband. How are attraction and social connection affected by modern technology? Twitter, Snapchat, Instagram, Tinder, text, virtual reality, a field experiment of 100 real life interactions, pairs with mobile device rated connectedness, and empathy lower than pairs with devices, without devices. Connectedness and empathy. As amazing as the technologies are, mobile devices like smartphones can also impair our feelings of social connectedness to others during the course of face-to-face interactions. Propinquity, an internet world, not that many degrees of separation because everybody's close to everybody else. Similarity, people seek others with similar popularity in online dating sites. Familiarity, liking decreased after meeting compared to liking based on online profile. Inaccuracy of online information was the usual problem. Propinquity, physical distance, no longer means what it once did, and the internet allows us to get to know people half a world away. Leskevec and Horvitz conducted a study testing degree of separation, measuring the social distance between people. These researchers analyzed an instant messaging network looking at who sent messages to whom. They found that the average length of a person chain was 7, and that 90% of pairs could be connected in just 8 hops. Similarity, Taylor and colleagues found that high popularity users of the site contacted contacted other popular users at a rate greater than would be expected by chance, a finding that probably does not surprise you. After all, who wouldn't want to reach out to the popular potential mates? Well, the less popular users of the sites, that's who. The researchers also found that users lower in popularity contacted other low popularity users more often. And of course, this sounds like the old adage that all the attractive people will only date other attractive people, and people that are middle attractive will date other middle attractive people, and on and on and on and on. So now it's popularity instead of attractiveness. Familiarity. In this research, Michael Norton and colleagues gave a survey to participants both before and after going on a date. Pre-date, all that participants knew about their partner was what they had read on a website profile, so their ratings of how much knowledge they had about their partner increased post-date. But the ratings of how much they liked their partner decreased after the date, as did perceptions of how similar they were. Why? Because the more familiar participants became with their partner during the date, the more they realized that their initial impression, based on an ambiguous dating website profile, was not that accurate. One question surrounding attraction is how tendencies regarding mate preference that have evolved over generations play out in the modern era of internet dating, speed dating events, and Facebook. Benefits aggregates a large number of profiles. It provides opportunity for communication. It matches users based on analyses of compatibility. But success rate not higher than other old-fashioned methods. 81% provide inaccurate information in their profile for at least one characteristic. They lie about their weight, they lie about their age, they lie about their height. There are no gender differences as far as lying is concerned. And they also have deceptive, misleading photographs. A recent review of online dating reports that by 2005, 37% of single internet users were dating online, a percentage that is almost certainly much higher today. And by 2007 2009, more new romantic relationships had begun online than through any means other than meeting through friends. On the internet, nobody knows you're a dog. It's a joke. Okay. Sternberg's triangular theory of love. There you go. That's what it looks like. Let's go through it. Liking, intimacy alone without passion or commitment. Most friendships fit this category. There is liking, but there is no intimacy, and there is no passion. Wait a minute. There's intimacy alone without passion and commitment. I'm sorry. Infatuation, there is passion alone without intimacy or commitment. It involves a great deal of physiological and emotional arousal, a heightened level of sexual desire, no emotional closeness, no enduring commitment. A special and very painful kind of infatuated love is love that is unfulfilled, and this is known as unrequited love. It occurs when we fall deeply and passionately in love, and that love is rejected. In one study, 98% of subjects had been rejected by someone they loved intensely. And this, of course, this is in 1993, which was, 30, 40 years ago. 30 years ago. The responses to unrequited love are generally negative. This is true for heterosexuals and gay men as well. What makes unrequited love so painful is that both individuals feel victimized. Unrequited love may start as a platonic friendship, but then one of the individuals admits that it was never just friendship, that he or she was always secretly in love with the other. The object of the unrequited love is often unable to express lack of interest in terms that are sufficiently discouraging. The unrequited lover takes anything as encouragement, sustains hope, and then finds the final rejection devastating. The object of unwanted love, after the initial boost to the ego, feels bewildered, guilty, and angry. Men are more likely than women to experience unrequited love. This is because men are more beguiled by physical attractiveness than are women. Men tend to fall in love with someone more desirable than they are. Interestingly, people report that they have been the object of unrequited love twice as many times as they have been rejected by another. We prefer to believe that we have been loved in vain rather than having loved in vain. Da 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 da. Empty love, there's a commitment alone, no passion, no intimacy. A couple who have been married for many years and have lost the passion and the intimacy in their relationship. In countries where there are arranged marriages, the early stages of the marriage tend to be empty. Romantic love, there is passion, there is intimacy, there is no commitment. It is joyful, it is intense, it rarely lasts for very long. Companionate love, there is intimacy, there is commitment, but there is no passion. This type of love occurs with long-term couples. The passion has decreased, but they still feel intimate towards one another. They certainly are committed to one another because they've lived together for such a long time. Fatuous love, there is passion, there is commitment, but there is no intimacy. Whirlwind courtships fit this criteria. People meet, fall passionately in love, and then get married before they have a chance to really know each other. And of course, this is the theme of Romeo and Juliet. Consummate love, passion is there, intimacy is there, commitment is there. The ideal love for many people is consummate love. Although love is a universal emotion, how we experience it and what we expect from close relationships is linked to culture. Romantic love is viewed as more crucial in individualistic cultures compared to collectivistic ones. Japanese ame. The Japanese describe ame as an extremely positive emotional state in which one is totally passive, love object, indulged and taken care of by one's romantic partner, much like a mother-infant relationship. It is sometimes described as married and divorced at the same time. Ame has no equivalent word in English or in any other Western language. The Chinese concept of Ganqing differs from the Western view of romantic love. Ganqing is achieved by helping and working for another person. For example, a romantic act would be fixing someone's bicycle or helping someone learn new material. In Korea, a special kind of relationship is expressed by the concept of jung. Much more than love, jung is what ties two people together. Couples in new relationships may feel strong love for each other, but they have not yet developed strong jung. That takes time and many mutual experiences. Interestingly, jung can develop in negative relationships too. For example, between business rivals who dislike each other. Jung may unknowingly grow between them over time, with the result that they will feel that a strange connection exists between them. Secret love may be the most exciting form of love. In this form of love, individuals have strong passion for one another, but cannot or will not make those feelings publicly known. Secrecy seems to increase the attraction of a relationship. Secrecy creates this strong attraction because individuals expend a lot of energy in maintaining the relationship by figuring out how to meet, how to call each other so that others don't know, and how to act neutrally in public to disguise their true relationship. Attachment styles play an important role in adult relationships. Researchers feel that once an attachment style is formed in early childhood, it will continue to function as a durable template throughout later relationships. Thus, a romantic partner will most likely treat their partner in the same manner that they treated their significant caregivers. An individual who was securely attached as a child had parents who were responsive and dependable. These individuals not only trust themselves, but trust others as well. They are comfortable with themselves whether they are in a relationship or not. An individual who was attached to their parents in a preoccupied or resistant manner had parents who were inconsistent in their displays of love. Alcoholics tend to demonstrate this attachment style. These individuals have trouble trusting themselves and tend to be dependent on others. These individuals must be continually in a relationship and display possessiveness and jealousy. An individual who was attached to their parents in an avoidant manner had parents who were dismissive, psychologically distant, or physically unavailable. These individuals trust themselves but not others. They will seek close relationships but then react in an emotionally distant manner. These individuals are the most likely to end up in a serial one-night stand encounter. An individual who was attached to their parents in a disorganized, disoriented manner had parents who were neglectful or abusive. These individuals have trouble trusting themselves or others. These individuals struggle in relationships and may seek individuals similar to their parents, thus becoming the victim of domestic violence. Another alcoholic style. A team of researchers recruited college students in the greater New York area who described themselves as currently being intensely in love. They asked these research participants to bring two photographs to the experimental session, one of their beloved and one of an acquaintance of the same age and sex as their beloved. After filling out some questionnaires, the participants were ready for the main event. They slid into a functional MRI scanner, which records increases and decreases in blood flow in the brain. These changes in blood flow indicate which parts of the brain have neural activity at any given time. While the participant was in the scanner, the experimenters alternated one photograph and then the other, interspersed with a distraction task. Prior research has found that the VTA becomes highly active when people ingest cocaine, inducing feelings of pleasure, euphoria, restlessness, sleeplessness, and loss of appetite. Reactions that are reminiscent of falling in love. The VTA, rich in neurotransmitter dopamine, also fires when people eat chocolate. Thus, the VTA is a major reward and motivation center of the brain, as is the caudate nucleus. Functional MRI studies of gamblers' brains as they gambled showed greatly increased activity when they won. Thus, when people say that falling in love is like a drug or like winning the lottery, they're right. All of these experiences activate the same dopamine-rich centers of pleasure. Social exchange theory holds that how people feel positively or negatively about their relationship will depend on their perception of the rewards they receive from the relationship, their perception of the costs they incur, and their perception of what kind of relationship they deserve and the probability that they could have a better relationship with someone else. This simple notion that relationships operate on an economic model of costs and benefits, much like the marketplace, has been expanded by psychologists and sociologists into complex theories of social exchange. We buy the best relationship that we can get, one that gives us the most value for our emotional dollar. Rewards are the positive, gratifying aspects of the relationship that make it worthwhile and reinforcing, including the kinds of personal characteristics and behaviors of our relationship partner that we have already discussed, and our ability to acquire external resources by virtue of knowing this person, for example, gaining access to money, status, activities, or other interesting people. In Brazil, friendship is openly used as an exchange value. Brazilians will readily admit that they need a pistolao, largely, it's literally a big, powerful handgun, meaning they need a person who will use their personal connections to help them get what they want. Costs are the other side of the coin, and all friendships and romantic relationships have some costs attached to them. Putting up with someone's annoying habits and characteristics, for example. The outcome of the relationship is a direct comparison of its rewards and costs. You can think of it as a mathematical formula where outcome equals rewards minus costs. If you come up with a negative number, your relationship is not in good shape. Over time, you have amassed a long history of relationships with other people, and this history has led you to certain expectations as to what your current and future relationships should be like. Some people have a high comparison level, expecting lots of rewards and few costs in their relationships. If a given relationship doesn't match this expected comparison level, they will be unhappy and unsatisfied. People who have a low comparison level would be happy in the same relationship because they expect relationships to be difficult and costly. There are a lot of people out there. Could a relationship with a different person give you a better outcome or a greater reward for fewer costs than your current one? People who have a high comparison level for alternatives, either because they believe the world is full of fabulous people dying to meet them, or because they know of a fabulous person dying to meet them, or are more and they are more likely to get into circulation and make a new friend or find a new lover. People with a low comparison level for alternatives will be more likely to stay in a costly relationship because to them, what they have is not great, but is better than their expectation of what they could find elsewhere. We know that many people do not leave their partners, even when they are dissatisfied and their other alternatives look bright. Research indicates that we need to consider at least one additional factor to understand close relationships: a person's level of investment in the relationship. To predict whether people will stay in an intimate relationship, we need to know their level of satisfaction in the relationship, what they think of the alternatives, and the degree of their investment in the relationship. Equity theory: equitable relationships are the happiest and most stable. Rewards and costs are roughly equal. In inequitable relationships, one person feels over-benefited, lots of rewards, few costs, devote little time or energy to the relationship. Under-benefited, fewer rewards, high costs, devotes a lot of time and energy to the relationship. Inequity is more important to persons who is under benefited, to the person who is under benefited. Does equity operate the same way in long-term versus new relationships? Not exactly. The more we get to know someone, the more reluctant we are to believe that we are simply exchanging favors, and the less inclined we are to expect immediate compensation for a favor. In casual relationships, we trade in kind. You lend someone your class notes, he buys you a beer. But in intimate relationships, we trade very different resources, so determining if equity has been achieved can be difficult. Long-term intimate relationships seem to be governed by a loser give and take notion of equity rather than a rigid tit-for-tat strategy. According to Clark and Mills, interactions between new acquaintances are governed by equity concerns and are called exchange relationships. In comparison, interactions between close friends, family members, and romantic partners are governed less by an equity norm and more by a desire to help each other in times of need. In these communal relationships, people give in response to the other's needs, regardless of whether they are paid back. To test the exchange and communal relationship model, Russ Bolt in 1983 asked college students involved in heterosexual dating relationships to fill out questionnaires for 7 months. Every 3 weeks or so, people answered questions about each of the components of the model. Rusbolt also kept track of whether the students stayed in the relationships or broke up. People's satisfaction, alternatives, and investments all predicted how committed they were to the relationship and whether it lasted. The higher the number on the scale, the more each factor predicted commitment to and length of the relationship. Subsequent studies have found results similar to those for married couples of diverse ages, for lesbian and gay couples, for close non-sexual friendships, and for residents of both the United States and Taiwan. A further test of the model focused on couples' willingness to make personal sacrifices for their partner or for the sake of the relationship. No idea why I put this picture in here. The researchers found that couples willing to make sacrifices for each other were strongly committed to their relationship, a commitment stemming from a high degree of satisfaction and investment in the relationship and the low quality of alternatives to the relationship. The current American divorce rate. Okay, so now let's talk about divorce. The current American divorce rate is nearly 50% of the current marriage rate and has been for the past 2 decades. And of course, countless romantic relationships between unmarried individuals end every day. After many years of studying what love is and how it blooms, social psychologists are now beginning to explore the end of the story, how it dies. Is the breakup moral? If you find yourself in a romantic relationship and your partner seems inclined to break it off, try to end it mutually. Your experience will be less traumatic because you will share some control over the process, even if you don't want it to happen. Relationship dissolution is not a single event, but a process with many steps. According to Duck, it has 4 stages. Intrapersonal thinks about dissatisfaction. Dyadic discusses breakup with partner. Social, breakup announced to others. Interpersonal, recover by thinking about why and how it happened. Another approach to studying why relationships end considers what attracted the people to each other in the first place. In one study, college men and women were asked to focus on a romantic relationship that had ended and to list the qualities that first attracted them to the person and the characteristics they ended up disliking most about the person. 30% of these breakups were examples of fatal attractions. The very qualities they were initially so attractive became the very reasons why the relationship ended. He's so unusual and different became he and I have nothing in common. She's so exciting and unpredictable became I can never count on her. This type of breakup reminds us again of the importance of similarity between partners to successful relationships. Rusbolt identified four types of behavior that occur in troubled relationships: destructive behaviors, actively harming the relationship, abusing the partner, threatening to break up, actually leaving, passively allowing the relationship to deteriorate, refusing to deal with problems, ignoring the partner, spending less time together, putting no energy into the relationship. Constructive behaviors, actively trying to improve the relationship, discussing problems, trying to change, going to a therapist. Passively remaining loyal to the relationship, waiting and hoping that the situation will improve, being supportive rather than fighting, remaining optimistic. Can we predict the different ways people will feel when their relationship ends? Responsibility for the breakup is an important factor. Breakers, a high level of responsibility, least painful, upsetting, stressful. Breakees, low level of responsibility, miserable, lonely, depressed, and angry. Mutuals, some level of responsibility, not as upset as breakees, but more stressed than breakers. Factors that affect experience of breakup: gender, women report more negative reactions than men. Uh, People stay friends after breakup. Heterosexual men are not interested in friendship, regardless of their role in the breakup. Women are more interested in remaining friends, especially if they are the breakee. Anyone is more interested in remaining friends if the satisfaction and investment of the relationships were high. And that is the end of the chapter. So I'll talk to you again next week.